Welcome back to 2022. My name is Daniel Faust, and I am the host of War Hero to Superhero, your podcast that helps you go help military, veterans, and first responders thrive from the bedroom to the boardroom. We are in the new year, and we're starting with a new theme. So now all of our episodes are now via podcast, audio, and video to go over and access at your favorite place for download, especially Podopolo, which we partnered with, that helps you go over and get your dynamic, interactive podcasting and connect with your hosts like myself. So we're in January, got some new virtual digs and go over and get some new virtual space. And now we're rebooting a little bit too. So we are jumping into the first week of marriage and back in the virtual bedroom of a sense. In this month's theme, we're talking about meaning to action, because there's a lot of things that happen in January that we have to have understanding of meaning to make to action. A lot of times we just go over and execute and just do a bunch of resolutions, but we're more concerned about here is help you to go over and get good meaning so you can make action, so you can get to your mission to go over and thrive from the bedroom to the boardroom. So today's topic is what marriage means to you. Did you know that there's over 60,000 books on marriage just on Amazon alone? The last time I checked, it was 87,000, but I can't get an accurate count anymore because it's just so many. But marriage means so many things to so many people, right? Our perspective at War Hero to Superhero is that we believe marriage is the building blocks of equality, diversity, and it's the societal foundation of the family. You can learn a lot of great lessons when you go over and get married. If you haven't already, I have. There's lessons of selflessness, commitment, and sacrifice are just some of those lessons that we learn in marriage. And marriage is the only bond, in the United States at least, that is protected by religious values, society values, and also government regulations. Go claim your tax return and go look at the laws. You'll see why. No matter where you get your stats, though, you think maybe marriage has gone away, maybe marriage is obsolete, it's totally gone. But guess what? Doesn't matter where your faith or religion or background is, 90% of people get married despite the divorce statistics. And the divorce statistics are not as high as you think. So another conversation another time. So what goes over and sustains a marriage? And that's what we're going to be talking about today, because what marriage means to you, what goes over and helps sustain that marriage. We believe marriage is sustained by values. And we're going to talk about some of these things, but I want to ask you a question. What are values in your marriage? Have you ever thought about it? Did you go over and just get married real quick and it was more about, hey, he's hot, she's hot, hey, make a good couple, hey, we love each other? Have you ever thought about what your values are in your marriage? And also this other question, what is marriage to you? But before we go dive into my story to tell you what my values are and to share some examples and tactical, we're going to do a quick sponsor break. That's the new thing that we have now added to War Hero to Superhero. So thank you, sponsors. Welcome back. Now, if you listen to this via audio, it was a beautiful music rendition of Amor Umbrella and also Jewel Drops. Amor Umbrella and Jewel Drops, you can go check out at legarity.tv or go find the Legarity app. So if you're listening to this via audio, it is a great musical rendition for you to go over and watch the video episode. Let's go jump back into our story of what is marriage? Because I asked you the question, what is marriage to you? So I'm going to give you an example of what marriage was to me. So marriage for me at first was, I thought it was about faith. So I went over and got married. to a beautiful woman 15 years ago. And when I got married to Michelle 15 years ago, I went over and had a foundation of faith, but I didn't truly have values of what my marriage was. You get taught things from a Christian perspective, from a secular perspective, from your parents, your mom, and your dad. But I really didn't have a true foundation of marriage. For me, I went over and got married because I thought, hey, I'm doing the right biblical thing. I'm supposed to have sex inside marriage. I'm supposed to go over and be a good husband and father, all those other types of things. But what truly happened is that I lived out none of those values at all. I went over and just lived day by day, going over and allowing my emotions and my preconceived thoughts and notions to go over and dictate our marriage. Even though I really wanted a biblical marriage, it was more about the tyranny of urgent. I also went over and was in the cycle of abuse. I was a gaslighter. I was all those types of things. So, and plus my wife had brokenness too. So you had two broken people together that really didn't have strong values. And we went over and basically tore each other apart little by little each and every day. We went through some deployments. We went through some kids. And when we got to year 7 on my wife's birthday, I threatened divorce. During that time, I got convicted while I did that on the phone. And then I come back home that night and my wife just spiritually kicked me in the, you just know where to visualize below the belt, if you know what I mean. And it was the first time that I went over and actually wrestled with values, not just to go over and what societal norms went over and said, but to actually wrestle on what I valued. Now, from that story, which is a really super quick story, what were our values in there? Our values were pretty much a superficial faith in sex was holding it all together. So we would go through the cycle of abuse, tensions would go right high, and then the blowout, usually me. And then I'd go over and then try to get emotionally convicted, then try to go over and get gifts and sex to go over and heal the bandage and then keep on going. I didn't have any strong values, or we didn't have any strong values to go over and hold our marriage together from year 1 to year 7. We were on the brink of divorce and she had every right to go over and to let me go. So we were also completely different. We were completely different. We were completely different in many different things. We were from East Coast, West Coast, military, non-military, going over and from different, even faith backgrounds. She came more from a Pentecostal background. I came more from a conservative Christian kind of Baptist background. And then you add the factors of just the values that I caught, which I went over and learned through my life, and then her values, which she learned, and then there was abuse on both sides of the family in some regard. So we were completely different, totally completely different. So how did we go from almost divorcing on June 1st of 2013 to a thriving marriage, and now us going over and doing digital television and ministry together, and also working face to face and shoulder to shoulder, and also having 4 kids that are going over and flourishing? Again, we all have our moments, and I share those throughout the year. But in this moment, how did it go over and completely change? Well, how did it go over and completely change? Well, it was this. It was working through our mess. And I'm the one that primarily took the reign on this. And what does mess mean? Because if you're watching this via audio, if you're listening to this via audio, you're not seeing the slides on the screen and everything else. Mess goes over and translates to mental, emotional, social, spiritual, and sexual. Those are the 5 main things that I had to go work through. What mental blocks, what mental brokenness, what did I believe about marriage? What did I believe about my wife? What did I believe about the thoughts of societal norms and those types of things? Then emotionally, what emotional junk am I going over and bringing to the table to go through? What social dynamics, social norms, social things, social beliefs I went over and had that I was bringing to the marriage? What spiritual applications and thoughts and patterns and beliefs and doctrines did I go and have? And then also, what did I believe about sex? Did I just think of it wham, bam, thank you, ma'am? Did I go over and think about it of self-sacrifice and love and intimacy? I had to go wrestle with all those things and many other questions within that parameter of those 5. And again, we don't have enough time to go over and to go through all that content, but another episode, another time. But when I started working through my mess, everything got better, including the rest. So as you go over and are working through your marriage, no matter where it's at, because this is prime time right now. It is January 3rd as we're going over and recording. This will be released in a couple of days. And you're probably on the brink of going over and either having a really fruitful marriage because Christmas has gone over and rekindled your life, or you're on the brink of potentially getting divorced and waiting for tax returns. So everybody's different. The divorce rate usually goes up between after Valentine's Day until about April. We somehow have the fiscal and emotional and go to get divorced, but then during Christmas, we don't want to do anything bad. So a couple questions for you to go over and wrestle with in this particular world, in this particular topic of going over what marriage means for you. And this is part 1 of 3. We go through today on what marriage means to you, and we're going to talk about the next day about what marriage means to her and what marriage means to him. So we're going to go from the male perspective and the female perspective. And ladies, please forgive me. I'll be doing research as much as I can, but I'll be going over and talk about the content. And again, this is always an open dialogue. So as you're going on Podopolo, our dynamic interactive podcasting app, or wherever you hear your podcast, go connect on social media and go over and add to the conversation so we can have more in depth. So this is the starter pack of all information, but we'll be talking more about that tomorrow. But your questions for today to wrestle with is this: what does marriage mean to you? Have you gone over and thought about it? When you got up and did those vows, 1 year ago, 2 years, 5 years, 10, 20, 30, 50, you've been married for 80 years. What marriage means to you? And what did it mean to you when you got married? And where does it mean to you today? Because that definition is going to go over and evolve over time as you go over and get equipped. Again, there's over 80,000 books plus just on Amazon alone that talks about marriage. And then you have faith books and the Bible and everything else. So what does marriage mean to you? Not what people have told you and not what you've read. What have you formulated as that? And then here's the second question. Once you've formulated that, what does marriage mean to your spouse? Because you might go find out that you might be both in the same place, both might be a little off, or you might be way off. And maybe that's the reason why conflicts are coming up, because values go over and dictate behavior, and then behavior then dictates action. So when you go over in those deep-seated values that you have, then come out to behavior and then comes out to action, and that displays back in the bedroom right there. On the left side or the right side of the bed, when you go over and meet in the middle, you're going to go over and find out what goes over and comes together. My next question for you is this: where is your marriage today? Scale it from 1 to 10. Where you at? Is it 1 that it's on the brink, it's about to go over and fall apart, and you're waiting for that tax return or that stimulus plan or bonus or whatever else to finalize the divorce? Or are you guys thriving at a 10 and you just want to make sure that you stay thriving at a 10? I really would like to go over and to hear that. So please go share that on social media, or if you listen to this on Podopolo, love to hear the conversation. And if it is low, usually about a 4 or below, because people average, if you're 5 and above, you have an average marriage. But if you're 4 and below, if you're low, do you want to have a thriving marriage? You really have to ask yourself that question. Do you want to have a thriving marriage? Because that's going to go over and say, if you ever come to us for services or a counselor or a chaplain or whatever direction you go over and go, if you are answering this as no, then your success rate of having a thriving marriage in the future is going to be a lot harder. Not impossible, but it's one of those questions you want to ask yourself, is that, do you want to have a thriving marriage? Your superhero tip for today, which is now we're done with the episode pretty much, is going over and, are you ready for a core workout? We have gone over and shared some information, shared about our marriage and everything else. Now it's your turn to go over and have a core workout. What does that mean? I want you to check out the link below. And if you're on audio, I'm going to go over and tell you what the link is. It is marriagecore.com, and go over and download your marriage core inventory. What core means is your connectiveness, your openness, your commitment, your openness, your restoration, and then your encouragement. Again, they developed the product better than me, so you can go check that out. What it goes over and challenges you is in those 4 key areas, because when you have that commitment, that openness, that restoration, and also that empowerment in your marriage, you go over and thrive. I'm going to go take the inventory tonight. I looked at it briefly. It looks like a very fantastic tool. And we always practice what we preach, in a sense. So we're going to go over and take that tool and go do that. It's 48 simple questions that range from 1 to 5 of where you sit in that question basically in that moment of time. And that's going to tell you where you're at. The higher your score, that means you have a strong core, just like your abs. If you have a strong core, you can support a lot of things. And then when the trials and tribulations come to your body can go and support. But if you have a weak core physically, then when trials and tribulation come to your body, you're not going to be able to handle well. It's the same thing in your marriage. Strong core, strong marriage. Weak core, weak marriage. Trials and tribulations come, weak core, you could be destroyed. So not impossible to go over and restore, even if you're on the low numbers. So don't go take it as like, hey, we're low, we need to get a divorce. It's just going over and identifying where you're at. So I want to thank you all for listening, no matter where you listen at nowadays. You'll check us live on social media. Go check us live at Podopolo and everywhere else. And when you're ready to go over and to connect, the dots, we are doing a new mission with our TV show. Our TV show is not War Hero to Superhero anymore. It is actually Impact for Difference. More details are coming, but you can go over, and if you are struggling in the bedroom, living room, or boardroom, I would love to go over and help you to go over and to thrive, and then take that testimony to go over and bring that to the world. So if you're interested and you have those low scores, either in the bedroom, living room, boardroom, connect with me on social media. I'd love to go talk to you about the next steps in our revolution about making impact for difference for you. So I want to thank you all for going over and joining. Thank you for all the sponsors of Armor Umbrella and Jewel Drops, which you can watch on Legrity, and we will catch you on the next episode.